Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and today I am here to bring you another terrible talk. My terrible talk is about the value of the end. Right off the bat, I want to apologize for my hair. It's crazy. It's out of control. I usually wear hats everywhere, and I usually keep it shorter, but just going to have to deal with my mad scientist look for the day. So what I want to talk to you about today, though, aside from my hair, is the value of the end. The end of what, you're asking? Well, the end of an IP, or the end of, or putting a story to bed, putting it away for a while, giving it some rest and some break and a chance to recover from itself. We're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how right now video games is, in my opinion, the most franchised entertainment industry there is. You know, they can only put out so many video games a year, probably less than the other markets because of the amount of work that goes into them. Because of that, they focus on games that have already captured your attention and making sequels to them and building onto them. And while this is kind of cool, at the same time, there's a lot of problems with this. It creates a higher barrier to entry for new gamers. It creates more convoluted story maps, and we're going to get to all of that in this video. First of all, let's talk about why it is that way. The reason it is that way is because the currency in entertainment in America right now is nostalgia. That's how all these companies make money. And I'm not even talking about just nostalgia for old things that you like the 80s, I mean, that's me, but the 90s, or, you know, whatever, like old music, old movies. I'm talking about nostalgia for things you just did. What do I mean? I mean, you beat a game and you love that game. Let's say I just beat Control and I love that game. The first thing I thought was, man, I'd love to just see what happens after that. I would see what happens with the characters going forward. And that's great. That's a good thing. It means that I've connected with the characters. It means that the game has, in some way, shape, or form, made me want more of it. Because of that, what happens then is these games then make more copies of, they make a sequel, and then a third one, and then a fourth one. When they do that because it's going to get them higher sales. Like me, the seller, let's just take me and my like of Control. Let's say Control 2 comes out, but it comes out along a game that I've never played before. You know, if I'm a Joe Schmo buyer, I'm probably going to buy Control 2 because I'm already emotionally invested in that storyline. I'm already connected to those characters. The people selling the video games know that. They know that you're connected to those characters, so you're going to come back for more. You're going to come back for that. Whereas you're less likely to be like, I'm going to spend that $60 on this other game. Even more so in video games because it's so expensive to actually purchase the games. You want to know that you're going to like the game right off the bat. So you're, of course, going to pick the thing with the subject matter that you've already enjoyed, instead of the subject matter that looks interesting to you, but you're not 100% sure on it. So this whole thing nets companies more money. And when they net more money, they keep doing that thing. It's basically, we're telling them we want that. So what video games is right now, especially in the AAA market, is any new IP is put out there to try and get enough like and enough interest to make a sequel, to franchise it, to continue it going perpetually. Then a team gets assigned to it, and basically that's all that team does. They just make that game on and on and on until infinity. Or more likely till we finally get sick of it and don't buy it, and that studio gets closed down and all those people get sent around to different places and they lose their jobs and all that fun stuff. With the exception of that, though, you're probably wondering what the downsides to all this are. Well, I'm going to tell you the downsides right now. Let's do it by analogy. I want you to picture yourself buying a house. I want you to picture yourself and buying a house for your family, whatever that house may be, a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, whatever. Okay, perfect size house for you, right? Now you buy it, but then in 5 years you're like, I've got this house, it's nice, but I want more house. So you add to that house. You build another addition. And you do this every 2 to 5 years. You just build a new addition, a new addition, a new addition. Now, eventually, you run out of, you've got all this space, and there's only so many of you living there. You have rooms you don't use. You have rooms that don't make sense. You have rooms that you never needed. And then all of a sudden you have this giant house that you don't know what to do with anymore. This is the problem with over-franchising. You just keep tacking stuff on every time you make these games. And at first, this is cool. It's really cool because at first you had just enough game to make you happy. Then you add some more and you're like, oh, this is even better. And then you add another one and you're like, this is better. It's not quite as much more as this, but it's better. And then you start getting into these diminishing returns where it's just tacking on things that you don't need in the story anymore. Especially when you're going back to the same characters over and over and over again. Does Master Chief really need a 5th game? Oh, 6th game? Do we really need to see him in another one? I know we all like Master Chief. I like Master Chief. I'm not saying I don't like Master Chief. But I want you to really think in your heart if you need to see more of that story. Because let's face it, that story was over at 3. Maybe 4, but definitely not. Now it's so convoluted and crazy, and that's when you get into like what happened with 5. You're just trying to manufacture stories to get more story out of it, to get more money out of it, and then you get into this terrible situation where you don't like it anymore. It's not. It also starts to feel like a money grab. That's when it starts to feel like a cash grab. It starts to feel like they're just making these because they know I'll buy them. And then you don't want to enjoy a story like that. Nobody wants to enjoy a story like that. The other side of this, the other downside to this, the other flip side is the game development process is the greatest there is in entertainment. I'm sorry, other entertainment industries, I'm not knocking you, but to make a game takes so much more effort and so much more manpower than movies and comics and books and everything. It's a ton of people working on one thing for years at this point. With that in mind, you've got to think if you lock down all these teams to existing franchises, you don't get anything new. You don't get any influx. I mean, at least when you're talking about comics, and we'll make some comparisons later, you get new comics here and there because they can just, hey, this writer, the teams are 2 people. This writer, this artist, hey, go over here and make a new comic, see if that works, see if that can be part of the whole universe or whatever. With video games, you can't do that. You have like EA has what? Like EA is one of the biggest companies out there. It's got what, 8 teams total? I mean, that's 8 games. That's it. That's all they can make. So like when you have like these 5s, like these Halo 5s and 6s, and you just have these constant perpetual franchises, you can't get any new IPs in there. You have to just kind of like rely on the independent market to hopefully strike it big. And so you have this situation where like very few developers are willing to actually work on a new IP, so you don't get new IPs. And this causes another problem, which is the barrier to entry for video game skyrockets. What do you mean by that? Well, the barrier to entry is how hard it is to get into something if you've never done it before. Okay? So like if you're jumping into gaming for the first time, you have to, get a console. You have to then understand how to use that console or PC. You then have to get a game. And then you have to understand that game's subject matter. And if you see where I'm going with this, it means that who wants to jump in on game 5? Who wants to jump in on game 4? You want to jump in on game 1. So anybody jumping into games right now is jumping into the middle of series. Like, that's no fun. That's not fun. That's not fun for them, and it makes it harder to get those people in. And yeah, gaming's huge. It's the biggest thing in the world right now. But still, you want more people. You still want it to grow. You still want to get more people in. And as long as you have those, there's certain people who are going to be like, there's nothing that interests me because I don't want to start the story in the middle, I had been a long time comic guy since I was very young. I was very into comics all the way up until my, I'd say early 30s. And then I stopped. You want to know why I stopped? Because I realized something in my 20 years of reading comics. Nothing changes in comics. It feels like it changes. It feels like the story goes on, but it doesn't. I'm going to make an example. Batman, okay? Everybody loves Batman. Bruce Wayne, right? However, Bruce Wayne, every time they've tried to replace him with a new person, like Dick Grayson take the cap or Jason Todd take the cap or whatever, it always ends up coming back to Bruce after like a few months. Same with every other hero who's passed the torch. It always comes back to them. And then it leads to these insane continuity incongruities. Batman is now a perpetually 35-year-old man who has somehow raised 5 fully grown adult children. I mean, he's raised Dick Grayson, he's raised Batgirl, there's like 5 of them. There's like 3 different Robins. He's now raised all these people and they're all almost fully grown. This is the kind of thing that I don't want video gaming to do. Like, I don't read comics anymore because I realized that the story never changed. It always just perpetually looped back to the same person. Captain America died. He was shot and killed. Died at the end of Civil War back in the comics. And then a year and a half later, he was back. It's because every time a movie comes out or whatever, they want the same guy back in. There's just this constant loop in comic books that you're now getting in video games. But video games can't support that kind of behavior because they can't produce enough content to be able to justify having these characters still constantly be the same to still produce new stuff. So you get into this weird, terrible spot where, like, nothing new comes out and you're just playing the same installment of the same game every time it comes out like you're supposed to. And you know what that feels like? That feels like work. And I don't like to do work. So there is a value to the end. There is a value to letting these IPs rest, putting them to bed and working on something new. Yes, it will be a risk. It will be a risk financially that you take. But honestly, if people aren't getting a Halo, they'll try the new IP. And I think developers need to understand that. Is that the problem is that as long as you keep putting that thing out, they'll keep buying it, but they're going to keep getting madder and madder, and you're going to get diminishing returns on the value. There is something to be said about letting the characters take a break, letting them go away for a while. I mean, even if you bring them back later, fine, but give them a rest and then come back to them at a later date. You can't perpetually just keep making the same games over and over and over and over again and let people be happy and have people be happy. All right, so that's it. I think I've wrapped it all up. I know this was a shorter one. I hope I touched on everything I wanted to. I had some notes over here. Obviously, I didn't stick to it very well. I'm kind of crazy and all over the place. So I just, in closing, I just feel like there is a value to ending properties and a value to new properties that the industry just doesn't quite understand right now. And yeah, that's that. All right, guys. So as usual, if you guys want to talk to us, if you want to tell me how stupid I am, you can do so in the comments below. I mean, because I know it. You can say it. It's fine. If you just want to insult my hair, that's fine too. You can do that in the comments below. Or if you want to say something nice, that would be great. Either way, you can also reach us on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. That link will be in the description below as well. And as long as you guys keep watching and listening, we'll keep making them. And we'll see you guys next time.